Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. I'm Governor Eos, and welcome to another episode of the Logical Gamers podcast. Today, I am here with Mr. Blankakong and Mr. Zeta Kaiser. No Hado Wolf, unfortunately, and no Mr. Esoteric. Hopefully, they'll be able to join us for the next one. But on to the topic at hand. So, for tonight's topic, we're going to kind of do, since it's the spooky season and everything, we're going to be doing a long associated spooky game. It's going to be an interesting topic. I think it'll be a good one. Hope you folks at home enjoy it. Topic for this week is going to be 12 horror movies that inspired the Resident Evil series. Everybody knows the Resident Evil series, classic horror game, a staple in the horror game franchise. You ask someone what's a horror game I should play, most old school gamer heads are going to say play Resident Evil. So, the article we're looking at for this week's episode is an article on the website Niche Gamer, which will be provided in the description. And they go over 12 movies that they feel had inspirations in the Resident Evil series, whether it was named by directors of different Resident Evil games, or something that when you look at this movie, you feel like, okay, yeah, I can see the inspiration for Resident Evil 4 or Resident Evil 3 or so on and so on. So we're just going to go down the list. We're going to talk about the movies, if we've ever seen them, do we know them, and kind of just talk about how we think certain aspects of these movies applied to different Resident Evil games, just going by the article. So we're going to kind of just run down the article. We're going to, talk about what they said, and then we're going to go, if we agree with that, do we see it? Do we not see it? It's going to be kind of a free form episode using the article as kind of a basis for our conversation this evening. So I'll start it off. The first movie they have here out of the 12 is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, I saw the original, and this might be sacrilegious to certain people, but I didn't find it, maybe because I'm probably desensitized to horror movies, but I didn't find it super scary. I just found it as an excuse to see girls 18 to 19, flaunting around in shirts that are tight fitting so you can, see something, you know what I'm saying? Which was kind of all I got from it. Maybe I missed the nuance of it, but I didn't get it. So, according to this article, they said that Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Resident Evil games that took inspirations from it was Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 I see more because Resident Evil 7 is like in the bayou. It takes place within a small compound. The enemies there are mainly a protagonist of, an antagonist of like a singular family. Yes, you have the molded, which provides your general enemies, but it's usually like a crazy infected family that, crazy hillbillies. That's obviously from Texas Chainsaw. Like I can see that. Resident Evil 4, I guess I can see it on a bigger scale with the beginning of the game, right? The village before Leon realizes, wait, I'm used to, rotting corpses trying to eat my brains, but these people speak, they use weapons, but like, are they infected with something? So I could see it from the beginning of the game with the whole village and the villagers attacking you. But then once you get like to the midpoint of the game where you're in like the secret underground base and you're dealing with soldiers with AK-47s, big dudes with Gatling guns. It's like, okay, that's when it loses its Texas Chainsaw vibe. But I definitely see it from the beginning of 4, and I definitely see it throughout the entirety, or most of Resident Evil 7. Yeah, I'll say the entirety, even the Mind too. So I rambled enough. Gentlemen, have you guys seen the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Do you see how certain Resident, or in this case, according to the article, Resident Evil 7 and 4, do you see the Texas Chainsaw inspiration? Like, do you not? Like, let's hear some thoughts.
Sorry. I was muted on my recording. So I definitely see it. But I wanted to point something out, like the whole, like you said, how it didn't scare you because you were kind of desensitized to it. I mean, this came out in 1974, so like I want to say that was a really different time. And if you, I mean, we weren't alive during that point in time. So, I mean, um, if we were like our age now, then I think maybe it would have had a different effect.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? To be fair, yeah, probably because yeah, the death scenes by modern standards are, oh, that's in a PG movie nowadays. But back
Yeah.
then, yeah, I could
Oh,
see that.
So
uh,
I think that's important to point out. But
I only want to interject because we watched. Not that anybody else would know this, but we watched The Thing recently, and not that I'm scared, but I was very like, this is unnerving, and that's not that many years after the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I think like it. I don't want to say you're wrong or anything like that, but I just
Well,
feel like I don't think its age should really like affect if it's like scary or not, and more just like how it's.
well, to put it out, Texas Chainsaw, the original, came out in 1974, and The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, came out in 1982. So yeah, it's not terribly far behind.
Yeah, and like we watched that recently. It was my first time watching it, but even now I was just like, okay, this is
it's disturbing imagery in the thing.
yeah.
And
As
we'll
opposed to like the
mm,
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where I feel like it predates what is usually modern horror now, which is more just like more gore-ish
Or yeah.
type horror.
yeah. I mean, I could see that. I'm just for me, it's like I try to put myself in the shoes of like a viewer from that time period and how my mentality might be different, and so I try to
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's
sympathize
wrong.
with,
I just
yeah, I try to sympathize with that hypothetical, hypothetical positioning, if that makes sense. But
I
it's
think that's the right way to do it. Yeah.
I mean, that's just how I do it. I don't know if it's right or wrong, or if it's even correct. But to the point of the topic, there are definitely parallels between Leatherface and like enemies in Resident Evil 4 and 7, and the setting is definitely, it feels like Texas Chainsaw Massacre in Resident Evil 7. 4, not so much. I think the only thing they took from Texas Chainsaw Massacre for Resident Evil 4 would be just the Leatherface archetype character, um, and maybe some like aesthetics as far as like the village and things
Yeah.
being a little old timey or whatever. But 7, I think, takes a lot of inspiration from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so I could definitely see that. Um, so I'd agree with that, with the article statement about parallels between at least Resident Evil 7 and the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre with the crazy family and all that. Like it just, there's way more to draw from.
yeah, I would say the same thing. I would agree with that because that's really all I could parallel with four is just the chainsaw guy chasing you and it's like, great, get out of here.
Yeah,
But
time to use my grenades.
yeah, outside of that, like as far as like the thematics is concerned, the four is more of just like it's literally, even though seven is called, wait, no, it's eight. Which one
8
is
is
called
the
Village?
village.
All
That's
Yeah,
right,
it's
never
it.
part
mind.
8. Yeah,
Never mind. It doesn't fit the way I wanted to say it now. But yeah, four is the village as opposed to being like centered around a particular family, like seven is.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Okay, so next on the list is a classic, another classic, Dawn of the Dead, the 1978 version. Now, the article here mentions things like the SWAT aspect and the police department, which was a major. I mean, you played as a police officer in both Resident Evil 2 and 3, and this one emphasized the gas mask aspect. which Ty will talk about his stuff about that, which I guess, because Hunk, a memorable character, wears a gas mask. But what I take as a correlation between Dawn of the Dead and Resident Evil 2 and 3 was, as far as I'm aware of, the original Dawn of the Dead, at least the starting point of the movie, took place in a major city. The main characters were SWAT officers for that city, and the beginning sequence of the movie takes place of them clearing out an apartment complex where people are hiding the undead, like family members and friends and lovers that have turned. When at the time the city is under martial law, much like 2 and 3, and they are ordered to essentially bring out your dead. So the parallels I get is that Resident Evil 2 and 3 takes place in an urban environment. You play as a police officer, an authority figure, so to speak, and you're witnessing firsthand the collapse of society, because as the Dawn of the Dead 2 movie progresses, you see that you think, oh, maybe they have a handle on zombie outbreak. You see, hillbillies and the police like just shooting the zombies for sport, and you think, okay, things are under control. But as they get trapped in the mall, you start seeing the horde of zombies circle, and there's raiders that break into the mall, and like, oh, okay, maybe things aren't so good outside. And Resident Evil 2 and 3 was like that. It's like a quick um collapse of society, and you go from an officer of the law trying to help the citizens to trying to survive, which is kind of how Dawn of the Dead kind of progressed. So that's the correlation I make from it, not so much the whole gas mask representation and how that's, top 10 things you missed. Hunk is secretly a Dawn of the Dead character. Like nothing like that. It's like it's more to do with it's an urban environment, and you're a police official or a police officer, Watt in Jill's case, and you're trying to fight back against the zombie apocalypse to save your city or your town, and how that ends up failing, and it turns into you just trying to get the fuck out, trying to live. So
About survival.
yeah, that's my correlation. That's my take. I definitely see Dawn of the Dead with Resident Evil 2 and 3, which the article mentions, like that, dead on. It's like spot on with that one. So thoughts?
Yeah, as you alluded to, I I agree with the setting, but yeah, I thought it was more of a stretch with the whole Hunk being designed after them. Because as I said before we started recording, it's just like I feel like that's just an aesthetic look that you would see like in a history book or something like that, and we like basically while talking about it labeled it back all the way back to like a plague doctor, and how like a plague doctor going into a village or a town that's assumingly infected would wear what we now consider gas mask would have been his version of a mask. And like looking at a plague doctor is not, it's very unnerving. It's very like has a creepy look to it. And so if you see some guy like that just walking around doing his thing, like it sticks in your mind. So having the whole I guess trained, what is Hunk? Is he a mercenary basically,
Yeah, pretty much.
or
He
is
works for
he's,
Umbrella.
I know he's more of I know he works for Umbrella, but I don't know if he's for hire like it is in that stupid co-op game.
He's pretty much part of their private army, so much like he's like their special ops in their private army, not on the same level or higher than like the UBCs that Carlos and Nikolai were.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
like if they need to get shit done, they'll call Hunk and his team, whereas UBCs are kind of just like general fodder.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wanted to make sure, but like basically for that, for, like seeing somebody like Hunk around would still be like, it's like, all right, who am I scared of? Am I scared of the zombie, or am I scared of this guy that's just walking through very menacingly in this suit? Like I can't see his face, I can't see anything. He's just like very calmly doing his job, and it's the same thing that you would see in a witch doctor. Like he's used to this. This is what he's hired to do. He knows what he's supposed to do. And I guess Hunk technically isn't there to help you like the witch doctor is, but he is helping. But it's still something that's like he's helping, but I don't like it. Like it bothers me.
Well, a
Okay.
witch doctor or like a plague doctor isn't
Yeah, that's what I mean. I
necessarily
don't know
there
why I said
to.
witch doctor.
It's cool.
European version.
Sure. Plague doctors, they're less so to help you and more so to understand what
But it's
this
supposed to
is.
do cleanup.
Sure, but not for your benefit, the victim, but for the benefit of those surviving or those around.
Well, it's for the benefit of like Hunk would be. He's for the benefit of Umbrella. It would be for
Yeah.
the benefit of whatever the kingdom is.
Right, exactly. So like they're not really there to help you the victim in terms of like it's like in the, not to derail too much, but like in The Last of Us, the first one, that beginning shot where Joel is with his daughter and the agent is there and he's getting orders to like gun down everybody he sees and you're like, oh, but you know, like he's not there to help Joel or his daughter or any civilians. He's there to make sure this shit doesn't get beyond the borders of that town or whatever. So like Hunk is kind of the same. Well, Hunk's mission specifically was to retrieve the G sample or whatever safely, and then his partners were there to to also retrieve the G sample. They just didn't anticipate Birkin fucking turning into a rage monster. But I do see there is a parallel, but you're right. Like it's not because of the Dawn of the Dead that aesthetic exists. I think is your argument, right? It's
That's
just the
basically
aesthetic that exists.
Yeah, like if
Yeah.
even if we didn't have this movie, that's what they used when they felt like, because the thing is a disease in Dawn of the Dead, and like a plague doctor does, he deals with diseases, and this is how he will look like. So to me, that is just the modern plague doctor design.
Yeah.
Like we just don't have the long crooked nose, but we still have the giant thing covering the entire eyes. You can't see a face.
The big goggles and like the deformed facial part of the mask.
Yeah.
I get it. Although we did talk about this before the recording. Something I had mentioned before was the setting. So in Dawn of the Dead, the setting was primarily in a mall, and it was just people trying to survive and using the the resources in the mall to survive. And in Resident Evil 2, at least, it was primarily in the police station and you trying to survive and use the resources of the police station to live another day and find a way out. And so there are parallels there, even though in RE2 there's a lab section, there is a sewer section, there's but it's I would say 60% of the game you're in that police station. So there's another parallel that the article doesn't really mention, but I think exists, is there, and it deserves to be thrown out there.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, so number 3 on the list is The Shining, 1980. One of my favorite movies, one of my favorite books. A really good book when Stephen King was good, but that's besides the point. So this one, the correlation they make with this is kind of back to RE1 and RE7. The kind of like what Kong was mentioning before with the whole this is the location that it takes place in. But the relation they make with this one is the uncanny setting that the Resident Evil games, especially specifically, I guess we could say 0 and 1, take place in, where they're in the Arcalade Mountains. It's a forest. You didn't think there'd be anything but trees, and all of a sudden, when Leon, I'm a fake fan. When Chris, Jill, Wesker, and Barry are running, they come up against a mansion, and you wouldn't expect a mansion to just be smack dab in the middle of the forest. Same thing with Rebecca and Billy. They're in their own separate mansion because apparently Umbrella just has a shit ton of them just lying in the forest. But
gotta buy property, man. Spend that money somewhere.
That's where we do all the experiments. But the correlation between that and The Shining is that The Shining takes place in kind of a weird location. In The Shining, it's a ski resort, but it's this big ski resort surrounded by just snow and mountains. So, and like the horror is relegated to inside that mansion, and it gets supernatural with Jack, the main character of The Shining, basically being influenced by spirits and leading to attacking his family, which kind of ties into Resident Evil 7. Conveniently, the father Jack is chasing you throughout the house, and just the surrealness of running through a mansion in the middle of the forest. So I can see the Shining one. To me, this one is not as strong a connection, but I do see where the connection is in the weird location that some of the at least the earlier Resident Evil games take place in. So, what do we think about that one? Number 3.
What I would I don't know if it would relate or not, but what I would say is when they say like it's not really a what they say this is like an uncanny setting. I feel like this is a more of a standard setting, but I guess maybe not for movies because I'm sure most of us boomers have had to read stuff like Frankenstein's monster and Dracula and stuff like that. And I don't know when those movie versions were made, but
Oh
those
God.
things were kind of in the setting of mansion or just spooky house, like away from the rest of the village or the way rest of the civilization as a whole. So I feel like that's more of like a standard setting than they're putting on, but maybe just for like movie horror, it's something that's different.
Yeah, I think at the time there weren't a lot of movies that we see it now, and some good horror movies are kind of, oh, it only takes place in an apartment, or it
Yeah.
only takes place in this one house. That wasn't so much a thing back then. So I think when like The Shining came around, it's like, oh, it's just the mansion, just the ski resort, and the kind of the area outside of it. Oh wow, okay. So the characters aren't going to escape to somewhere different. It was kind of like a new take on horror.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be
I
my only thing.
I don't know. I kind of disagree because I I haven't seen The Shining recently. The last time I saw it was years ago, but I can see the parallel, at least with Resident Evil 1. I mean, Resident Evil 1 takes place in a mansion. The Shining takes place in a mansion, away from like civilization. I remember there being real like specific scenes in The Shining and the courtyards, and I remember the courtyard in Resident Evil 1 being like a pretty scary section. There are other parallels, like probably the scariest scene to me growing up of The Shining was the lady in the bathroom.
Mm.
Um, and they definitely took that scene and
Oh,
added
you're
it to
actually, yeah,
RE1.
yeah.
So like there are definitely some like hard parallels just from remembering certain parts of RE1 and The Shining. And then as far as 7 goes, I could definitely see the parallel between the Jack from Resident Evil 7 and Jack from The Shining. Like the way he stalks you and like the way he kind of taunts you or whatever. Like there's a lot of parallels there. So like I'm
Oh no,
pretty
well, I think
sure.
that's very specific. I think it is more
Yeah.
of them. My point was more along when they were like, "Oh, this doesn't look like it's haunted, but it is," and I'm like, I feel like that's more traditional than they expect. But it's from like
Mhm.
I guess we want to say like something like a different genre. That's why I said like the Dracula and like Frankenstein's monster stuff because like they are away, like they're in a like a mansion house thing, and it's just like
True.
something is off about being over there because nobody else goes over there. It's just the the mad scientist and Dracula himself who lives in his mansion. Like nobody else goes there though. He
Yeah.
comes to them.
Yeah.
So that was more my point for the articles when they said like, oh, this is like a different type of setting. Like I feel like this is more standard, but just not for the horror that we have at the time
I
or
could
was
see
developing.
I could see that. Yeah, like I don't think a lot of people know about Dracula or Frankenstein. Sad as that sounds, like that's like
That's like the epitome of
old
old
Yeah,
school
school.
horror.
that's why I'm like maybe this is like more boomer take, and this is just me like
Yeah.
half remembering when because we were forced to read these things in high school and whatnot.
Hmm. Yeah. So I don't disagree with you. I just don't think people are like, probably the person who wrote this article wasn't thinking about that at all. So and I guess the most old school they got is like 1970, right? Like that's where history starts for them.
Hey,
Yeah.
And and
that's why I wanted our take on it. We're
so
not fucking octogenarians over here making a podcast, but old enough.
yeah, so but I mean you
It's
make a
time.
good point though. Like I didn't even think of that. Like I didn't draw that parallel between Frankenstein and Dracula being like secluded and like The Shining being like another horror movie where it's like seclusion is a part of the
Yeah.
horror. Yeah, one could argue that The Thing kind of has that too because we're about to talk about The Thing now, but they're secluded in wherever the hell, the fucking Alaskan mountains by themselves, right? So
Those damn Polish. Am I right?
they're Norwegian.
All right, well, excellent segue there, Kong, because number 4 on the list is John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982. Now, this one, I mean, it's kind of obvious. It's kind of in your face. The Thing, for those that don't know, one for shame. No, I'm just kidding. But please
Yeah.
watch that movie. Like,
Don't look at me like Kong did when I told him I have not watched the thing
yeah,
before.
I mean, we immediately did that.
I was shocked because that movie is amazing.
Epitome of classics. But that one obviously it's an alien creature, takes the form of a human, turns into these weird, grotesque mockeries of dog and humankind. And it's a bunch of survivors using the tools they have, isolation, like Kong said, and kind of trying to fight against this alien bioweapon. And Resident Evil is literally 9 times out of 10 you're fighting some bioweapon. How many times have we seen Birkin transform from just a creature with a giant eyeball into his final form, or Nemesis, or Mr. X, or even Wesker? So the whole body horror, morphing into weird shapes that you can barely tell this thing was once a human. That's a Resident Evil classic. Even when they moved from viruses to parasites, they still had creepy things with this parasite. I'll still freak out at 4 when I shoot the guy's head off, and next thing you know, there's a tentacle that shoots out of his stump with a scythe swinging at me.
Oh yeah.
So that's a freaky one. So it's definitely the creatures and the weird freakish things they have, and talks about the practical effects, and it even mentions it from Resident Evil.
Yeah, it's in there too.
So there you go. Yeah, gentlemen, let me hear your takes.
I would say freaking looking at the picture that they use, I'm just like, yeah, this is definitely a liquor.
Yeah.
This is 100% a liquor. So even if they was like, no, we didn't borrow from this, I'd be like, it'd be very hard pressed. Be very, very hard pressed to be able to be like, no, we definitely didn't take this, because that, other than the fact that this one has eyes because it's the dog, like this is like just almost one for one. This is what the liquor looked like, at least in the form of the head, because I don't think the dogs ever got to finish freaking morphing into like whatever it was trying to become.
Like 5, they had the dogs where their mouths would. It's 5. It's more like the Thing dogs, because their mouths and upper chests would open up, and it would just be So more so in 5.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, this is I think this one out of everything on this list, I think like the Thing is probably like one of the most spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. Like The Thing, like when I first I played Resident. I think I played Resident Evil before I actually watched The Thing. I think, I don't know, it's blurred 90s timeline, but there are definitely parallels with like the tentacles, right? And like
Oh yeah.
Nemesis, for example, with the with that scene where he kills Brad and he just shoves that tentacle through his face and just chucks his body, is like, what the fuck? Like, that's some Thing shit, right? Like, I'm like, holy shit. And then his tentacles just goes back into his fucking arm, and he has like this pulsating, like, not heartbeat, it's like this weird shell on his shoulder with like purple tentacles around it, and it's always pulsating. Like, that shit is freaky, and that's like definitely a Thing aesthetic, or at least that's a parallel I drew when I was a kid. I was like, whoa. And we just saw The Thing like a week or two ago for Halloween, and wow, like, it's seeing it now is like, man, like they definitely took some liberties here with some of the aesthetics. And
Yeah,
who
that's what
can
I'm saying.
blame
Even
them?
if they wanted to, there's like you pushing it to say that nah, we didn't take anything from this.
Yeah,
You'd be
this
really
no
pushing it.
no way, no shot. I
Yeah.
wouldn't believe it. But I love it. Who would blame them, right? Like, how can you not be
Yeah.
I
inspired by such a
mean,
great film?
yeah,
So
I'd make a game just for body horror after seeing that. But
yeah.
okay, so Thing, the obvious one for anybody who's listening.
Right.
This one,
Yeah. I was gonna say before we get to this one,
yeah,
I don't know. I really don't know.
this one, again, for me, it's kind of like the article. Not to bash the article, but it's a little bit of a critique that this one was kind of a stretch. I see it really only for one thing. So what we're talking about is the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, 1984. Now this one, they kind of relate the Terminator to Wesker, which I don't see. I get it. They both had trench coats. They both wore all black. But no, Wesker
The
had
back
way
here.
more. Yeah, he had way more charisma. Was way more charismatic. Where I do
Well,
agree is
Wesker wasn't a robot, so
right. Yeah, I think where they're getting with the robot angle or putting Terminator is with Mr. X, specifically Mr. X, because I won't even use Nemesis because as weird as it sounds, Nemesis had more personality than Mr. X. Uh, I mean, he said one line,
Yeah.
but
But I mean, he had like I mean, I guess Mr. X has a purpose too, but Nemesis had like a clear purpose. Like, I want
right.
you.
But Mr. X was more like the Terminator mannerisms because he had a singular goal, like it was to kill any surviving humans that he ran across, and he didn't speak. Not that the Terminator didn't speak, but he didn't speak, whereas Arnold's Terminator barely spoke, especially in the first one. And he was just like he had a singular purpose. He wouldn't run at you, he wouldn't sprint, he wouldn't like anything, he would just power walk, fucking Chad stride to you. And to me, that was the scariest shit because you see enough zombies, you go, ha, stupid. He can't even like he vomits when he's on the stairs because he's too dumb to grab me. I didn't know that was I think it's programming back then. But anyway. But when Mr. X came around, like, oh my fucking god, like this thing just he opens doors. Excuse me? No. When he opened the door in Resident Evil 2, I lost my mind because that broke what little rules I thought the game had. So, as far as the Terminator relations, I can see it with Mr. X for sure. But to put Wesker in, nah, that I don't agree with.
Yeah.
Wesker it's I would relate Wesker more to like a supervillain, like a DC comic book level supervillain than the Terminator. But that's just my
Yeah.
take. Definitely an X. Let me hear it, Zeta.
No, I was gonna say the same thing. I feel like that's another one with the hunk thing where I feel like this is just the aesthetic look of something. This is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
how do we make somebody be a villain but also be cool? We'll give him British accent and wear all black with sunglasses. There we go, done. And it's like, all right, what is Terminator? I mean,
does
it's not
Wesker have a
British,
British
but
accent?
I mean, it's
I mean,
European.
he's snooty and like kind of a dick, but I don't know. He has a British accent.
I
I think he
think it's
just
some
has a
form.
snobbish attitude.
I don't know. By comparison to Chris and Barry and everybody else.
Well, he doesn't sound super American, but
Yeah.
he doesn't sound
No.
British either. So I don't know.
I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm projecting. Maybe I feel like he's British.
He might be. He might be like I don't know. He might be
Deep
mixed.
lore.
I don't know.
We need the
Maybe.
deep lore Wesker. See one of the redcoats. Who knows? But
It's a black
yeah, I
belt.
just feel like that's just more the mold of like this is what a villain should be or what a villain should look like, and it's just like sleek with posh attitude and like wearing dark colors so that you know for sure, yeah, that's the bad guy.
Yeah. I agree. I think the Terminator Wesker parallel stops at the attire and the fact that they both have red eyes through sunglasses. Like that's kind of where it stops. It's like, yeah, they have the same haircut. Yeah, they have leather jackets. Yes, they wear black. Yes, they're Caucasian men. Yes, they have red eyes. I guess, and they also wear sunglasses. Like that's kind of it. Like Wesker's
And
a
even I don't even remember. Did he even have that in one?
no. He got
Didn't
that
that even
in
come
Code
into like
Veronica.
5?
Code Veronica is when he first showcased it.
Okay.
Yeah, he
And
was
then,
in his police uniform.
Yeah, and in 5 it became very apparent, right? There was a scene in Code Veronica where Wesker and Claire come into contact, and I don't know if she hits him or something. Like there was some contact where she hits him, and she knocks off his glasses, and he shows like the red eyes or whatever for the first time. Because apparently, I think at that point he was experimenting with headhunter genes, and so he had the headhunter agility or whatever. I could be wrong, but I kind of vaguely remember that. Anyway, yeah. So, as far as Terminator Wesker, it ends at the attire and the physical aesthetics. The Terminator parallel really comes in with Mr. X, the stalking, and Nemesis with the stalking, and like Terminator just has like these, he doesn't have a rocket launcher, but Terminator has like this giant shotgun, and I think they took that from Terminator, and it was like, ooh, it'd be cool if Nemesis had a giant gun, right? Because in Resident Evil 2, Mr. X didn't have a weapon. Even in the remake, he didn't have a weapon. He didn't need a weapon. But I think the idea was like, could you imagine how much scarier it is if this motherfucker has a gun too? It's like, what the hell? Like, you don't need no damn gun, but he has one, and it's bigger than yours. So, yeah, I think that's where the parallels end with Terminator, and the fact that he stalks, specifically Nemesis stalks Jill for all of the game, and the Terminator stalks Sarah Connor. So like, there's those parallels as well with the female protagonist.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. So next on the hit parade is number 6, Aliens, or Aliens 2, the sequel to Alien 1986. Now this one, yeah, I can see it. This one is especially the reason they used Aliens was to use Alien would be wrong, because Alien was more survival horror. Alien, they didn't have a way to fight back. The alien was stalking them, killing them one by one. So the reason they used Aliens was because in Aliens, they fought back, right? They knew what aliens were. They went to Ripley, the main character from the first game, and asked her, "How do we handle this thing?" She said, "Guns." So this is the first time we saw them
The
fighting
American
the
way.
aliens. Yeah, and obviously Resident Evil, in its entirety, has you confronting a problem like a liquor and introducing the solution called your shotgun. So obviously all of Resident Evil is fighting back against these weapons with good old Second Amendment power. And I can see that coming from Aliens. Also, the escape sequence, because in Aliens 2, when Ripley was escaping from the facility that she was in, there was the classic self-destruct timer counting down. It was a narrow escape before she escaped, before the whole planet exploded. I mean, come on. If you've played Resident Evil, there's videos out there on YouTube showing the different escape voices and how they're differ over the years. So obviously Resident Evil loves its last minute action escape scenes with the timer and everything. So definitely, I can definitely see where Aliens relates to Resident Evil, fighting back with big guns and getting the fuck out before this big explosion takes everything out. So definitely Aliens. I see it.
Yeah, because I mean that's basically. I can't even think of one. Well, I mean, I guess. No, the volcano blows up, so that's still an explosion. Never mind. Yeah, it's basically everything, other than maybe. Is the first Revelations? I don't. Does the boat blow up?
I think so.
I think so.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. All I remember from that game is the blonde monster lady chasing me around. That's all I remember.
Of course you do.
Yeah, she was kind of hot.
But everything else is usually all right. Mansion is blowing up. This is blowing up. Everything is blowing up. Yeah. Like I said, the only one I could think of is 5, but the volcano blows up, so that's
it wasn't a
still
countdown.
technically count.
Yeah, it's a natural explosion.
Yeah, the only one I can't think of or remember is Revelations and 0.
Almost positive
Zero the
the
mansion.
facility blows up. Like I'm almost positive that happens. But I could be wrong. And I think you know what I think. Yeah, I think it does because I think the lady chases you during the countdown sequence. I think. I kind of vaguely remember that. I haven't played it since the 3DS,
Oh God.
so it's been a
Same.
long time for me.
Yeah. All right. Well.
Um, but but yeah. So yeah, I definitely see the parallels between Aliens and some a part of the Resident Evil formula, which is like the ending sequence. You're in the lab, you've uncovered the truth, and now you have to escape before everything blows up because it's just a staple at this point. Yeah, I see it, and characters fighting back, right? And yeah, I see it. There's not much to say. Like it's all pretty obvious.
Yeah, I think this one, like the things are kind of an obvious. Okay, so this is the next two entries, at least for most of us.
The big
Probably
old don't
all
know.
of us.
Yeah. It's like, wow, okay, something to watch.
Yeah.
So number 7 is Leviathan from 1989, and basically the summary that the relation they gave is that they started off with a pretty stupid movie, and I'm always for dumb entertaining movies, but pretty much that have the influences in Resident Evil. Apparently, Capcom owes a lot to Stan Winston, and what they make is what they claim is unique is that the underwater setting for a lot of the aquatic monsters in Resident Evil, which has kind of fallen out of fashion in Resident Evil. You don't really see a lot of aquatic monsters anymore. I think that's kind of the correlation they're making with Leviathan and Resident Evil. That Leviathan was a water-based movie, from my understanding, and that this is where kind of like a lot of the kind of like shark creatures from Resident Evil 1, the toads that were in Resident Evil 3, I believe, and also 0, and the piranhas, kind of like the aquatic monsters that you fought. Kind of, they took inspiration from Leviathan. Lurkers, yes, there you go, lurkers. That's what they were called. So yeah, this one is I haven't seen Leviathan, but if it's as the name implies, Leviathan, this is definitely water based. So
Yeah. That's why I know the Revelations, because that's basically all on the boat. That's why I was just like, all right. I mean,
yes, right.
if you're gonna take anything for something, this would be it. It's like, all right, we need what makes sense to be on a boat based horror game. Fish zombies, go.
I guess, but the zombies in Revelations weren't. I don't want to say aquatic. Seems like a stretch. Like they were deformed and like really elongated and tall. So it looks like they kind of look like bodies that were kind of torn by the sea and revived. That's what they kind of look like, or kind of like the enemies from Resident Evil 4, where you needed that special gun and you needed to shoot through, like it was an X-ray gun or something. You need to shoot like parasites. They kind of looked like that. Memory serves, like just really tall, lanky, doofy ass looking zombies. So I could see it, but like it's like fish monster. Okay, sure. Like it's kind of a stretch to me. When I think fish monsters in Resident Evil, I think of the monsters from Resident Evil 3. The toad, like they're headhunters, but not really. They kind of look like headhunters, but they're not. They're more like, I think they ate you or something. I don't remember. Like
they ate you whole, yeah, as their death.
Yeah. Think you fought them in like the garden area. It was a really short segment, but they were there, and I think that very short sewer segment right before the lab. I think it's the only times I remember seeing them. And that's kind of it for aquatic creatures in Resident Evil. I mean, I don't count the sharks because they're just regular ass sharks. That's kind of it. Like I can't think.
Resident Evil is kind of like a terrestrial game, so you have the giant fish from that, but that's just a boss.
From 5?
No, from 4. Remember when Leon's in the lake?
Oh, the fucking alligator. Yeah. I was thinking of 5. The giant, the guy who the The guy who talks like Meow from Pokemon. He like gets thrown into the water. The dude in
Oh
the suit.
yes,
And he turns
yes.
into like a giant squid sea creature or some shit. I don't
There
know.
you go. We're finding more.
There's stuff, but like
We're
I'm really
getting there.
grasping. I'm reaching right now, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Resident Evil isn't really, but like Kong said, it's if you look at the sharks from one, it's like, oh, that's a shark with patchy skin. It's like, yeah.
He's infected. Heavy air quotes.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, there's got to be some aquatic representation, and hey, let us know in the comments because we haven't seen Leviathan. Maybe there's a monster that Capcom borrowed from Leviathan. We don't because we haven't seen it. So moving on to
Another segue of not seeing.
yeah, keeping the train going of movies that this group hasn't seen, and probably film critics are losing their minds right now. But I have heard of this one. Is Tetsuo the Iron Man? Not to be confused with Marvel from 1989. This one is a very out there Japanese black and white film, very artsy, full of tons of symbolism, which I'm not even going to pretend to get into. But what I will take is the part that they used that was the inspiration of Heisenberg's character from Resident Evil 8 Village. So for those who've played 8, the latest Resident Evil game, they know who Heisenberg is. He's one of the big cheeses in the village, and he's kind of like Walmart brand Magneto. He he controls metal, but in relation to the movie, he makes these creatures to overthrow Miranda that are a fusion of human and metal, which is Tetsuo's whole theme. It's by the end of it, it's just the easiest synopsis I can give is that it is a amalgamation of human and machine, and that's Heisenberg's whole shtick. You see, as you go through Heisenberg's level in 8, you see how it starts off as okay, these are just the regular zombie, for lack of a better word, creatures that you've been fighting, but now it has a visor on. Okay, it's a little weird. Then by the time you get to the end of it, you have fucking Gundam looking zombies with jetpacks and fucking drills, and the mini boss for that area is literally turbine propeller engine strapped to a man's legs, which is kind of how Tetsuo evolved. It evolved from kind of human with machine elements to just straight, what the fuck is this? So that's the inspiration. It's specifically Heisenberg from 8 and his weird human machine amalgamation project. So I know this will be quick from the other panelists in our group, but let's see what you guys have to say.
Everything you said was true.
So I'll say this. When you first shared the article and I was looking through it and I saw the image and I read the description, I thought of The Surge immediately. For those who haven't played The Surge, that's a Souls-like sci-fi game. Esoteric recently played it on stream on his channel.
Yeah,
watch him
took away my shill.
Watch him every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Twitch.
Stole my shill spot.
On the Logical Gamers on Twitch. So he played that recently, and that's a game I played years ago, and I thought it was really cool. And I never knew that a movie like that existed. But I definitely, to take it back to Resident Evil, I definitely see the parallels there, like based off of what they said in the article and the picture they showed, like Heisenberg's like entire factory of his experiments, basically. Definitely scary. Like there were times where I was like, kind of like, all right, this is kind of like, kind of had like shivers, like, all right, I'm going down through this hallway in the factory section of the game, because these guys are fucking like, they're quiet, but when they're loud, they're loud. Because when they see you, it's like, oh shit, and they move quick. And then Propellerhead was really cool. He just, I don't know. When I first saw him, I laughed because A, Heisenberg makes fun of him, but B, he also just looks like Airman from Mega Man. So it's like, it's just fighting Airman right now. What the hell? So yeah, I don't know. I got to check out the
brand
movie.
Capcom.
It makes sense, so I'm good with it. But yeah, got to check out Tetsuyo Iron Man. Definitely a movie night contender.
Oh yeah. Okay, and I think this is the last one. We've never heard of this parade. Dagon. At least I'm sure it's Dagon from 2001. So kind of
Daggone these nuts.
I got So from the description of the article, because we'll lead on the article kind of heavy for this one,
Yeah.
that this one is basically Resident Evil 4 in a nutshell. That the main character is being chased by cultists in a creepy Spanish village. Where have we heard that one before? And these cultists end up turning into these weird Cthulhu-like monsters. For the love of God, that's Resident Evil. It's Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 starts off you chasing a cult. You think these people are just religious fanatics. Next thing you know, you've got guys in hoods chanting at you. Then the tentacles start coming out. Salazar is literal tentacle man, and it pretty much just devolves from there. So Spanish cultists chasing you. There's a Cthulhu monster involved. I mean, yeah, that sounds like Dagon. And like I said, we haven't seen this one yet, but I mean, Spanish cultists in a village. Yeah, it's Resident Evil. So again, another one that'll be quick, but let's just hear the panelists' view on it.
Do they say ahí está?
Maybe.
According to that, it's in a Spanish village, so they probably
They say that. There we go. We got them. Whoever's the director, get on Capcom. Copyright infringement.
I mean, Resident Evil 4 came out what in 2003 or 4 on GameCube. It was 2004, right?
Maybe.
Let's find out right now.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll Google that. I'm pretty sure it was 2004. This came out in 2001, and I know Resident Evil 4 was in development probably for a few years, probably after Code Veronica.
2005. Good sir.
2005. Oh, I was close. So it makes sense because the Resident Evil 4 originally was supposed to be like haunted ghost mansion or some shit, right? So I could see them doing that because he's even like a tech demo that like there's videos out there of Leon fucking fighting ghosts that are coming out of portraits and shit. I'm pretty sure they probably saw this movie. Was like, nope, I like this better. We're doing this. We're doing crazy Spanish people. So yeah, I could see. I haven't seen Dagon to like say yeah that's a definite parallel, but I'm pretty like based off the description, even the image that they show, it's like yeah, I'm pretty sure they just ripped.
Yeah, I mean even then, that is you bring it up because I forgot about the tech demos. It's just like 4 was a completely different game.
Yeah,
beforehand.
I don't find it hard to believe that they just saw this film and was like, yep, everybody on staff, watch this film. We're doing this. This is what we're doing.
Fuck it.
Get them out of here.
And
Spanish village. I love it.
Yeah, so that one's kind of a nail on the head, kind of obvious. Another obvious one. Now this one was actually a pretty interesting take, and I have to agree with it. And it kind of coincides with Resident Evil's, in my opinion, their dark times. Funny enough, number 10, Resident Evil, the movie, 2002. This was a time when Resident Evil hit mainstream status, and once Hollywood got their hands on it, you know what Hollywood does.
Oh yeah.
So
explosions, baby.
Yeah, like this, it like the movie, the Resident Evil movie, which I have to, if you're somebody watching now and you know what became of the Resident Evil movies and where they ended, I would have to say Resident Evil 1, if I had to, and this might be a stretch, if I had to give it anything, the first movie had the closest to do with kind of the Resident Evil. It took place in a mansion, and it evolved into an underground facility. There was like a team of specially trained stars like UBCs. They were Umbrella Soldiers. But it was just action-packed. And I guess the most iconic scene, which the art mentions, is the laser scene, where people are getting cut in multiple pieces, and then they have the cool guy who dodges all of them, and then the AI is like, fuck you.
Oh yeah, I hated that so much.
She's greater, you don't win. It's like, oh, okay. And how this correlates to Resident Evil is that Resident Evil and 6, especially 6, I'll even give 5. I'll dismiss 5. It wasn't that bad, but 6 became an action game. It had explosions and guns and rolls, and it was an action game that vaguely had anything to do with what Resident Evil is at its core. And that's a perfect emphasis with the Resident Evil movies, especially if you know where they ended up. And 4 to a certain degree, I can see 4 was kind of actiony, but even then 4 still had survival elements in it. It wasn't until 6. Like, I won't forget the scene where I'm playing as Chris and I'm running down the highway and it's literally fucking explosions and cars flipping behind me. I'm like, what am I doing here, bro? What is how we went from locked doors and Jill sandwiches to this? But yeah, it's just like to me, this movie perfectly encapsulates the dark time of Resident Evil. Or in my opinion, they redeemed themselves with 7. So, anyway, what do you guys think?
I cannot disagree. Return the Jill sandwich. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because I think this was back in more boomer time. This is back in our college days when we was playing 5 and 6 in the lab rooms, and I don't even think we finished. Well, I finished 6, but I don't think we finished 6 in school. We finished it. We finished 5. Me and Wolf definitely finished 5 in.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, but I don't think we finished 6, and I think I bitched the entire time while playing 6 because of how different it was, and it was just more like, am I playing Resident Evil or am I playing Left 4 Dead? Because I'm probably wrong, but I almost feel like there was something in it where it was like we're on like a helicopter and we're shooting zombies. I'm like, what is going on here?
There was a part with Sherry and Jake, the Wesker clone, because that's such a Hollywood trope.
He's definitely his son. Don't worry.
Yeah, where you were shooting the big bad that was chasing Jake, and there was literally a scene where seemingly there was an entire fleet of helicopters, and you kept shooting him as he would hop from helicopter to helicopter. And it's just like, what?
Okay,
how many
there it goes.
helicopters are in the sky? What is this game?
Yeah, it was that, and it was also like it's always understood that there are lots of zombies in Resident Evil, but it's always like you as the player is controlled. Whereas in 6, it was just like here's just a horde of things coming at you, and you just shoot indiscriminately, and there's no threat of running out of ammo or anything.
My god, it was like ammo for days.
Yeah, like any form of threat that Resident Evil would throw at you, like I'm sure Mr. Kong can attest to when he had to fight what's that stupid thing's name in 4? The giant mutation. Yeah, when you had to fight him with a knife because you didn't have anything.
Yep.
Yeah, like that's like it's just not a thing in 6, and 6 is very much the Hollywood movie interpretation of Resident Evil. So they definitely started to influence each other. So this is definitely not a wrong assessment from this article. And then somebody somewhere was just like, we need to go back, and thank God that they did.
I agree with everything you both said. Like, I have nothing more to add. I don't want to open a can of worms that is the Resident Evil films, because
they get rough. They get rough.
Yeah, like you said, one is the only one that I really think was like there was an attempt made. What is like we want this to be like, but even then, it still was more action.
It is a very
Hollywood.
Yeah. Okay, well there you go. Check out Resident Evil 6 if you want to talk.
Please don't.
Or don't. Or don't.
So we're hitting the end. Now we're gonna move on to number 11, Evil Dead, specifically the 2013 reboot. Yeah, reboot.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know about Evil Dead had to do with like demons, like straight demons. They had the Necronomicon. Weird shit happened in a cabin. It specifically, the movie took place within a cabin. It had that whole tree scene where the tree was doing things. Look it up. It's weird.
We're not talking about that other movie where the tree had, relations with a woman.
No, that's Evil Dead. Yeah, because Ash was
the 2013 one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But no, the original one as well.
The original, well, yeah.
The
But
girl gets
it
fucked
happened
by
to
the tree, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So
I remember that one, but I didn't remember in the 2013 one. Well, maybe I just don't remember the 2013 one.
yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to criticize. I kind of like the 2013 one was, again, it's kind of Kong's thing, time periods and whatnot. So 2013 was kind of more, ooh, this is a little bit, because it's 2013, like graphics and effects had evolved back then. But in relation to the topic, even the article admits that relating Evil Dead to Resident Evil was a stretch until Resident Evil 7. And I feel like we're mentioning 7 a lot because me personally, a lot of people on the internet think Resident Evil 7 was a turning point for the series. Because if you know where 5 and 6 was going, a lot of people said that Resident Evil was going downhill fast. And 7 kind of course corrected where it just took all the action away and just it returned to tradition as the name
Yeah,
goes.
you said the line.
It did it saved Resident Evil. I think Resident Evil was on its way to being shelved
100%.
until
Yeah.
7 came around. So how that relates to Evil Dead is that Evil Dead had a lot to do with like the supernatural and the spookiness and demons. And if you played 7 didn't have demons in it, but it had Mia. Mia was a literal supernatural creature, right? They had scenes in the game where things would fall on their own or doors would slam and close shut. The whole sequence where you went into Mia's room to grab that mummified arm was literally out of Evil Dead. That's an Evil Dead scene, 100%. So I can see the supernatural elements in 7 that relate to Evil Dead, but not super hard. It wasn't like Satan didn't come up. Still grounded in realism, where bioweapon and this is like this is corporations meddling in things they shouldn't. But the specific Mia sections of the game were definitely Evil Dead esque. So, what do you guys think? No tree loving in this one, unfortunately.
Oh,
Well, technically, Mia's last form does kind of sprout into like a tree-like monster, and there's like branches and stuff. Like,
True. I mean, I don't know if Ethan wanted any of that. I mean, God.
I mean,
but yeah,
I guess some of the stuff could be because what you call it, like you can do some. What is the freaking what's the guy's name?
Ethan
Fuck.
Winters.
No, not him. I can't remember it now. But basically, like when you're fighting him, you could do some messed up stuff to him, and he just kind of just like
Oh, Jack
regenerate.
Baker.
Jack Baker.
Yeah, yeah. You just regenerates like kind of unnaturally, so you can like say that there's like
I mean,
more supernatural themes
bring
to it.
that up.
Because
Literally, a boss fight with him. You're fighting with like that's an Evil Dead type thing. I mean, Ash
yeah,
uses the chainsaw as his main weapon.
yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like maybe there's like, but I mean, I feel like I may be more or less stretching, but like that in particular is like the only thing where I would see like where you could like, okay, this feels more supernatural because like I'm doing all this stuff to this guy and he's just like, yeah. Anyways, I'm going to get back up and still follow you around, and like it takes a lot to like make him finally like stay down for a little bit.
Yeah.
As a so that's all I got. Anything for you, sir?
No, I kind of said everything. I don't really remember the Evil Dead 2013 movie. I think I seen it once and never saw it again. Not that it was bad. It was just I don't know. I just saw it and I was
One
like,
and
oh,
done.
okay,
Yeah,
cool.
some move.
I do remember the original though. I forget what year it came out. It was either early 80s or late 70s.
I feel like it was an early '80s movie.
But yeah, bit of a stretch. I guess I have to believe you with the Mia stuff because I don't remember much about the Evil Dead 2013, and I didn't care for the Mia stuff in 7. It was just kind of whatever. I kind of brushed those parts off, so I don't really. It doesn't stick out in my mind too much. So I don't have much to add.
Well, this is the last one on, and this one I kind of feel the same way Kong did just now. It's just like, yeah, sure. So the last one on the list, number 12, is the Blair Witch, specifically the 2016 Blair Witch one. And the correlation that this article makes is kind of, to me, it's a hard stretch because this whole thing is abandoned pretty much within the first hour and a half of the game. It's the whole video camera recording thing. So again, for those who played Resident Evil 7 and know the Blair Witch is a found footage movie in which the characters film everything going on in the movie. Resident Evil 7, the beginning parts of the movie and some of the Mia tapes, kind of that style. They're filming via camcorder, and they do weird stuff. Like you have the character who's facing the wall, which is a scene out of the Blair Witch. You find out that guy's hung up by his mouth on a hook. But I guess they were going, at least for this article, they were going for like the found footage style, which I can see it, but it barely lasts in Resident Evil 7. It's only for those little parts, which I thought were cool, right? It was kind of like lore within lore. So you see what happens to completely unrelated characters before Ethan shows up, which is kind of what you get from the Blair Witch. You see what happens to a group of people, and the main characters of that movie are watching it, but that's about it. Like the whole demon witch thing, no, there's nothing like that. So I think it's mostly just the found footage. And this one, out of all the movies that were a stretch, I personally think this Blair Witch comparison is the stretchiest of the stretches.
Armstrong, you would say. Yeah, I'm in agreement. I mean, it is the last one, probably for good reason.
Yeah.
Because even before we started, I was just like, I don't know about this one, like at all. Other than, like you said, just the whole video footage thing. But that was like, that's kind of how they advertised 7 at first. So I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and it's,
If you want to compare, that's how Blair Witch was advertised. Like, oh, this thing that was found. Well, that was how the original was advertised. I don't know how 2016 was
it's
advertised.
kind of the same vein. It was the same vein. Instead of they got rid of the whole parts of it were found footage.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah. This one's right up there with the Leviathan comparison. I haven't even seen Leviathan, but I'm like, it feels like a stretch. This one I know is a stretch.
Yeah, this one's
the first part of like the first 20 minutes of Resident Evil was very like, ooh, Blair Witch, you're in the forest, and you're like, I don't know where I'm going, and it has the
these
little
things hanging from the trees.
Yeah, the grainy fucking aesthetic over like the overlay or whatever that they had going on, and I mean, you found more tapes in the middle of the game, and it brought you to like sections to kind of like piece the story together. But besides that, and I mean, I guess you could say the section with this guy's girlfriend, Mia. There we go. Where she had to run and hide from like the
and we just talked about her.
She's that forgettable. Where you had to run from like the old lady or whatever, like
Marguerite. Yeah,
Marguerite. There we go. I could see some parallels there, because Marguerite's part of the game, the courthouse, the courtyard, forest like area is kind of like akin to Blair Witch, but again, that's like a stretch.
That's me. Like,
that's me really forcing that line.
We're stretching that bungee cable. Like, you're gonna connect.
So I mean, I could see it. I could see an argument for. I can concede that they maybe pulled some inspiration from Blair Witch, but
like Zeta said, it's number 12 on the list for a reason.
It's it feels like we really need 12, so really need you to find something here. And they got.
We didn't want to make a top 10s list, so we gotta want to be different. Make it a top 12.
Yeah, Leviathan and Blair Witch are the ones that they're the two entries that stick out. Like, I don't know about this one, man, but all right, I'll give it to you. But yeah.
Well, that wraps up Niche Gamers Top 12. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'll pass it off to Kong. He's gonna hit us up with all the socials and the corporal speak. And thanks again for watching and listening.
So not much of a corporation. It's a bunch of dudes just talking. But maybe
Now
someday.
we trademarked and everything. Do not steal OC.
All right, cool. Well, if you enjoyed the episode, definitely leave a like and comment, subscribe. We do podcasts every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard. If you heard any movies that you haven't heard about and you're interested in watching, this is definitely a good source of like movies that you could watch on Halloween.
Yeah, some of these are real bangers, just FYI. Others are
The Thing, Aliens, Dawn of the Dead, like The Shining. Those are like primo horror movies right there. So like if you haven't seen any of those, highly recommend all of those. Some of these other ones that we haven't seen, like Dagon, seems kind of interesting. So I'll probably be checking that out.
Fire dead.
I don't know about that one, but even the article says it's stupid. So it's like, oh man.
Yeah, he wasn't starting off strong.
Yeah. Maybe on a boring night you got nothing else to watch, sure, but not my top 5. But anyway, so leave a comment, let us know if you've seen some of these films and there are parallels that you see that we didn't talk about. Definitely mention it in the comments. Happy Halloween. This is going to post right before Halloween, so be safe out there and get some candy and watch some movies. And say again,
I said check your candy because
oh, check your candy for sure, 100%. If it's not wrapped up, don't eat that shit.
Yeah, candy for shady dudes.
Yeah, for sure. And if it's like ring shaped, proceed with caution. Anyway, so yeah, we also have social media. So we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We also run a Discord. All of the links will be in the description down below. So if any of those social media platforms are ones that you use, definitely check us out there. That'll be provided for you there. What else? Mr. Esoteric, who isn't present, does stream on the main channel on Twitch, Logical Gamers TV on Twitch. He streams every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So check him out, follow so that you know when he goes live. I stream every now and again. I haven't streamed in a while, I'll be honest with you. But if you want to know when I go live, definitely follow me at Blankakong on Twitch. Yeah, we'll see you there. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for a great conversation. Thank you, listeners, for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Next time.